Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Engage 8 podcast. I am Josh with my co-host Mike. Today we get our bracket in front of us for the college football playoffs. I'm very excited for that. We're also going to preview week 15 of the NFL season. There's no more bye weeks now, so it's 16 game previews from here on out. We'll give our picks for every game, and then at the very end of the show, we will give our best bets for the week. But we'll start with talking about this past week in college football and the bracket reveal. Mike, go ahead, get us started.
Yes, the bracket has been revealed, and we have not too many surprises. It really came down to after the championship week, we did see Clemson upset SMU in the championship game there. I guess I can talk about that game quickly. Clemson got off to a quick start. Looked like they might take over. We're up 21-7 in the first quarter, but in the second half, they were up 24-7 at half. But in the second half, SMU fought their way back into the game. They got Kevin Jennings played very good in that second half. They tied it up. Clemson does end up winning on a game-winning field goal, which, with everything that's going on with Clemson this year, kicking-wise, it's kind of ironic that a kicker is what sends them to the college football playoff. They are the last seed in, and they came down to SMU versus Alabama for the final seed in the playoff, and SMU ends up getting in over Alabama. With this first year being the 12-team playoff, I kind of feel like this is how they had to do it. You couldn't reward Alabama for losing to some mid-level SEC teams. You kind of had to put in the SMU team that won pretty much all their games, have two nice losses to BYU and then Clemson in the championship. They had a very good season. You have to reward the teams who are playing an extra game in their conference championship. But I can see next year, if the SEC does dominate this bracket, I can see next year in the same situation, Alabama possibly gets in. But I do feel like SMU, they got to their championship game. They have the more deserving spot over Alabama. The other championship games, Oregon, Penn State. Penn State goes into this game and plays very good. Drew Aller has a solid game offensively, does throw a couple interceptions, which weren't great, but the Penn State offense moved the ball well. They put up 37 points. James Franklin's team looked good. Defense struggled against Dylan Gabriel. And also the Oregon rushing attack was very good, 186 yards on the ground, but solid effort from Penn State. I am more confident in this team now than I was going into this Oregon game. I think they could potentially make a run in the playoffs. They have maybe one of the best draws they could have had. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, but Penn State, they ran the ball great against Oregon's defense. Two 100-plus yards rushers with Katron Allen and Mick Singleton. They both look good, and Tyler Warren is probably the best tight end in the country. He has a big game there as well. SEC Championship, Georgia, Texas. Close game pretty much all the way to the end. A lot of big plays on both sides of the ball. Georgia's passing attack really wasn't there at all with Carson Beck. He did not have a good game in this one at all. And then at halftime, right before halftime, he gets injured and has to come out of the game. Gunnar Stockton comes in and was able to move the ball pretty
Great
well
name.
down the field.
Great
Yeah,
name. That's
great
a
name.
that's a national championship winning name right there.
Yeah. That's a guy who will dominate in college and go to the NFL and you'll never hear him again.
Yep. I like it though.
Yeah, and he was able to get it done in this game. Does have an interception, but they were able to get the ball down the field. Their defense really was this game was a defensive battle. Neither team could do too much on offense. Quinn Ewers has 358 passing yards, but two interceptions really hurt them and the Texas team. Texas was unable to run the ball. Texas looked great this year outside of playing their two losses, both to Georgia. Uh, Trevor Etienne was good on the ground for Georgia. Like I said, they ran the ball well. They get to overtime. Texas gets the ball first. They only get a field goal. Georgia has a chance for a touchdown to win the game. Gunnar Stockton gets hit pretty hard. He gets knocked out of the game. Carson Beck has to come in for one play. And for some reason, I mean, Texas didn't sell against the run. Carson Beck couldn't move his arm above his, I mean, he just couldn't move his arm up basically at all. It sounds like he might miss a little bit of the playoff. Luckily, they get that bye now after winning this game. So who knows if he'll be ready to go. But Gunnar Stockton should be ready to go if need be. Next championship game, Boise State. They played on Friday night. They get it done and secure themselves a bye against UNLV. They looked very good in this game. Ashton Genty is going to continue to be Ashton Genty. He has another big game. UNLV falls short. They could have potentially won this game and fought their way into the playoff, but Boise State, dominant season for them. They get it done. UNLV, I'm pretty sure just lost their coach as well. I think he went to Purdue. Am I right?
He did.
Yeah. So Purdue finds their next head coach. Sounds like they're going to put a lot of money into all of their sports team, is what their AD said. So hopefully they
Yeah.
won't be the worst team in the country again. But yeah, Boise State gets
Worst
it
team in the
done.
country is a stretch. They could beat Kent State.
I don't know,
Kent
man. They
State
were
is the worst team in the country.
worst Power Five team in the
That I
country.
would agree with. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I would agree with. Considering they also lost half the Pac-12 as well as the entire Big Ten.
Yeah. But yeah, UNLV doesn't get it done, and Boise State wins that and gets solidifies themselves as a team with a bye. And then the last conference championship I'll talk about is Arizona State, Iowa State. It was a game for a little bit, but Arizona State in the second half, really after the first quarter, took over this game. They looked like the better team from basically the start to the end. Sam Levitt was great. Cam Skattebo has a Heisman-like day. He's not going to be in New York, but he has a good day. 2 touchdowns on the ground, 170 yards in the championship game there. And Iowa State offensively just could not keep up. They looked outmatched. This Arizona State team, I think they're a sneaky good team. They got kind of a potential unfortunate draw getting Texas in the second round, but I think this is a good Arizona State team, and no matter no matter what, I think they're deserving of winning the Big 12 and getting in.
Yeah, I agree. I really like this Arizona State team as well. Unfortunately, I believe Jordan Tyson is out for the season. Is that a, or maybe not? I could have sworn they had a receiver that's going to be out and miss significant time. Maybe it's not Tyson, but I thought it was. I don't know. But regardless, yeah, I really like this Arizona State team. Iowa State's really struggled to
It
score.
is, yes.
It
Jordan
is.
Tyson's out for
He's
the rest of
out.
the season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's unfortunate. He's their leading receiver by a country mile. He has the only receiver over 1,000 yards. I believe their number two receiver is Scatterbo at 506 yards, and then their next leading receiver is Xavier Guillory at 320. So he has been their entirety of their passing offense. I would say that as much as I really, really like this team, I don't see a world where they beat Texas. I think Texas, as long as they don't lose to Clemson, and I don't think they're going to lose to Clemson. Clemson does not belong in this playoff through the one team out. But I would also say that they're one team that nobody is really talking about. As I mean, I like Clemson's chances to beat Texas better than Arizona State's at this point. So I think there's a chance that Clemson can go in there and win. I know they're 11-point dogs. They're playing at Texas. It's a tough place to play, but I hope Texas doesn't look over their next few matchups knowing that they have a path that should walk them into the semifinals. But talking about some of these other games, like I said, Gunnar Stockton, he was really, really good for given the circumstances. I know you look at his stats, 71 yards a pick, but he still was 12 for 16. That's all you want from him. He was able to come back and win this game for Georgia in the second half, which was huge. Drove down and scored a touchdown on the first drive of the second half. Similar situation here for Texas as it was in the first Georgia game. They couldn't score points. Luckily, this time they were able to defend a lot better. Their secondary was a lot better in this game than it was in the first time these two teams played. But the same thing that killed them in that first game, which was their offense, killed them here again. They lose here. The one positive I would say for Texas, outside of the fact, like we already said, and we'll get to the bracket, but they have a dog walk easy path to the semifinals in the Cotton Bowl. The only bad thing I would say is they would have to play Oregon most likely or Ohio State, which is two tough matchups. But at least if you can get past that game, I would say you're more than likely going to play Georgia, and it's hard to beat a team three times. So I like Texas' chances to win this whole thing. I I struggle to want to bet on them, but their path is so easy. You have to assume they're at least going to make it there. I like Oregon in that game over Texas. I think Oregon has the playmakers out wide to be able to compete with the Texas secondary, but regardless, they get an easy path there. Moving on here to that Oregon game. Unfortunately, this whole conference championship week kind of sucked outside of Oregon and the Oregon Penn State game and the Georgia Texas game. Every other game was kind of blowouts. You saw the better teams prevail. Even in games like Tulane Army, where Tulane goes in as 5-point favorites, they get their doors blown off by Army. But this Oregon Penn State game was great. Oregon was in control for the whole thing. The score at the end, of course, is a little deceiving, even though Oregon still did win the second half. Penn State was always right there and with a score, but it never felt like they were going to be able to win this football game at any point. Of course, their defense was not able to get it done. You see Dylan Gabriel be a perfect for it, four touchdowns, no interceptions, while Drew Aller does throw a couple picks in this game. I agree with you. I like Penn State too. I think they are kind of a sleeper team here, especially given the second easiest path in the playoff with Texas. But Do I think they have what it takes to beat a team like Georgia? I don't know. They can run the ball like a motherfucker against Georgia and just hope to control the clock and hope to hold Georgia to not too many points and try to do what Texas did to Georgia at times. But I just don't see that happening for Penn State. I love Georgia to go to the semifinal or to go to the conference championship, the national championship here at the end. But is there anything? Yeah, I guess Clemson as well. Like I said, I think they're a little bit undervalued here. I think they have a better chance of beating Texas than ASU. You see SMU and Kevin Jennings make the playoff over Alabama. I said to you when we were talking on Sunday morning about this, I was fine with either decision that could have been made. It felt like it was going to be SMU because they were favored by a good amount over Alabama to make the playoff going into Sunday morning. So it kind of felt like it was pretty much over for Alabama, but I was fine with either choice there. I would have understood putting Alabama in because you're looking to see the best games. If you not to say that Alabama probably would have ended up being the 12 maybe in no, I think they still would put Alabama at the 11, but we could have had Bama Penn State in the first round. I know the committee was salivating about doing that, but they decided not to do it. This is the field we're looking at, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. Clemson, Texas. I have to give Texas the advantage in that matchup. I agree. I think Texas could have the easiest route if they're able to beat Clemson. If like that game will be in Texas, they would go play Arizona State in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. They'd have a pretty big location advantage there and a skill advantage on top of that as well. Texas hasn't played too many great teams. I mean, Arizona State might be the second best team they played so far this season, but I would still expect Texas to get it done there and win that game against an Arizona State team. Tennessee, Ohio State is a very interesting matchup. This is really, I think this game, there's going to be a few that really decide how the SEC and the Big Ten shape up throughout the season. But if Tennessee goes and beats Ohio State, I think that could be a huge advantage for the SEC, not just this year, but next year going into the college football playoff. Maybe they get that extra boost and get another team in, like Alabama this year. But Ohio State 7.5 point favorites. I think Ohio State gets it done. And that sets us up for a classic Rose Bowl matchup of Ohio State and Oregon, former Big Ten, Pac-12, but
Works out.
now it's just Big Ten, Big Ten. That'd be pretty cool to see. And I kind of expect that's probably what the committee wants. Ohio State will travel well to that game. Oregon will probably dominate the stadium, but it's going to be 50-50. And
Man, these lines are interesting to me.
yeah,
These first round lines are interesting.
they are very interesting.
Specifically that game, but I mean, most specifically the Notre Dame being 7.5 point favorites over Indiana surprises me. But Ohio State 7.5 over Tennessee,
Yeah, it seems
really?
like a big number.
It does. I probably I don't know. I might not. I might just not even bet that spread. But as much as I like Notre Dame to go far in this playoff, I like Indiana plus 7.5 on the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think that stadium's going to have a lot of Indiana fans in it. It's obviously very close location. There'll be more Notre Dame, but that's another very tough one, and it's unfortunate for them that the winner of that game has to go and play Georgia in a Sugar Bowl in Louisiana, which would be a just straight home game pretty much for Georgia at that point. But yeah, IU Notre Dame is going to be very, very interesting. It sucks that I mean these Midwest teams, there's not too many of them in the playoff, and two of them
It's
there have
great
to
though.
play against each other.
It is great though.
It has its benefits, but I mean it also those are two teams I would have liked to see go far, and they play each other in the
You still have
first
Ohio
round.
State.
And Penn State, I mean, they're
No,
more
Penn State's East.
Eastern.
They're East. Yeah, Ohio State's Midwest though, for sure. A
Yeah,
couple South teams.
yeah, a lot of South teams. I mean, I love Notre Dame. We talked about it last week. I like Notre Dame to go far. It's just, you said it, their first two rounds are very, very tough. I think whoever wins that IU Notre Dame game, most likely Notre Dame, Georgia, the winner of that Notre Dame, Georgia game should be heading to the national championship. SMU Penn State, another interesting game. I think Penn State should win that game. They look very good against Oregon. SMU has an elite offense, but I think Penn State can slow them down and score on them offensively. And then going against Boise State, I'd seen like a predicted spread at about 12 and a half. And as much as I love the Big Ten and Penn State, I think that's a good matchup for Boise State. We saw Boise State play that Oregon team close to. I know Oregon was in a rut. It was early in the season. But I like Boise State to keep that game close. It's the Fiesta Bowl.
The predicted spread stuff a month in advance, that was crazy.
I
Like,
mean,
we don't, what if Penn State goes out there and doesn't look great against SMU, gets a close win?
That's
Is
true. I
it
mean, how
still
would you?
11.5?
SMU and that prediction was also still. I think they were like 6.5 point favorites on Boise State. So
SMU?
yeah,
Oh wow.
so
Yeah, that's shocking.
they're not really giving Boise State that much of credit for how good they've been this season. They've won every game outside of the Oregon game where they looked great in. That's why I kind of give a little bit of an advantage to Boise State just to kind of sneak in, maybe get underestimated, and then sneak out a victory and go and play Georgia or Notre Dame. And I think Georgia or Notre Dame stomp on them. But that's another very interesting one. I don't want an SEC championship. I'd like to see an SEC versus Big Ten, whether it's Oregon, Georgia, or I mean not even Big Ten, but Notre Dame, Texas. Those are the two that I would like to see the most at this point, or the most likely ones that I'd like to see.
Yeah, I mean, we can go and give some picks now. I was wondering if there was anything I had left to say. I thought there was something I had to say. Oh yeah, my futures. I said a couple episodes ago that I like Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Georgia. I of course still like Georgia. Ohio State and Notre Dame, unfortunately, they get the most screwed. Oh, here's what I was gonna say. One thing that was very interesting to me that was taken into account from the committee is it seemed like they really took the closeness of some of these games into account. You see, Penn State plays Oregon semi-close. Texas, of course, goes late with Georgia. Those two teams, if either of them got blown out, Notre Dame is moving up a seed over them. They said, okay, these two teams competed with the teams that we are putting at one and two. So in that logic, let's put these teams at the first two non-buys. That's what they did. I don't disagree with that choice. I actually kind of like that they did that. It's unfortunate that a team like Notre Dame gets absolutely screwed from it. A team like Ohio State gets pretty much screwed from it as well. When you're looking at, I know it's a bad loss against Michigan, but that you can't take Michigan at face value when you're evaluating that game. You can't. It's a
No,
rivalry game. It's
there's a
been
lot.
it's
Yeah,
been the boogeyman for them. They lost late on a bad field goal, on a bad offensive possession or defensive possession from Ohio State, and they were great that entire game. I think you have to value that differently. I would have liked to see Ohio State and Notre Dame get higher seeds because I wanted to place futures on them. I'm still going to place the Ohio State one. I don't know if I'm going to on the Notre Dame one because I think it'd be dumb to place conflicting futures when they're most likely going to play each other in the second round. Does it guarantee me a semifinal team? Yes, but at the same time, I don't know if I'm going to do that. But you wanna give our bracket picks now?
yeah, we could. I mean, we also got to say Georgia could be missing Carson Beck, so that could be a kind of a big thing.
I
But
like
Gunnar
Gunnar
Stockton,
Stockton.
he did look good,
The
but
name is the name might be
there's
doing
not
it
much
for me.
tape out there on him, to be fair.
That there's not much tape at all, and he seems like he's a tough kid. I mean, he came into that game in the SEC Championship, which is, in my eyes, just as an impactful game as the national championship. And he comes in at halftime, and you know, I know I figured you wouldn't like that, but
Not anymore. Maybe
um,
last year.
yeah, I don't know. It's a big game, and he comes in there and he gets it done. Well, I mean, what can you say about it?
He got it done. I'll give him that. Yeah.
So before we get into the bracket picks, another bit of college football news that we should probably talk about. Bill Belichick probably gonna go to
Oh,
UNC.
yeah. Kind of shocking. They really wanted to introduce a youth movement after firing 73-year-old Mac Brown.
Yeah,
They're going to go and hire 72-year-old Bill Belichick.
which is crazy, but I love it. I think it would be sick. He's gonna bring Steve from Washington, who
And
I think he's getting some head coach interest right now in
yeah.
college football. So
And that's actually what's holding up. It sounds like Belichick has agreed. It's just North Carolina's deciding if they want to agree with his terms, which was once he decides to retire or quit, that Steve Belichick would be the head coach in waiting.
really,
Yeah.
oh, I love that. I love that for them. That's great.
But that's what they're deciding, and they don't know if they want that.
Could you imagine 2 years from now or 2 years before us being like, yeah, hearing that Bill Belichick's gonna be the North Carolina football head coach?
Yeah.
It's wild, dude. I never in a million years thought he would have went to college, and I definitely didn't think he was gonna go to UNC.
Out of all schools, UNC I mean,
It's a winnable conference. I gotta give him that.
yeah,
Oh my God,
they're not terrible
where
either.
does he go if he somehow like sneaks out a natty?
Yeah. He- Maybe he
Best
brings Saban with him
athletic
as a
coach of all
DC.
time. You said what?
Brings Saban in as just like a defensive
I
coach.
saw, well, that's gonna be Steve, but
I just
um
mean like an
I like that
assistant
though. I saw that
coach to
online.
help.
That would be crazy. Brings in Matt Patricia Josh
He
McDaniels.
probably would, to be
Yeah,
honest. Matt Patricia.
he probably would. Who was taking credit for the Lions' success
Yeah, I
a
saw that. That
couple
was
weeks
crazy.
ago with the Ragnar pick.
There
Congrats on
is,
that, bro. I guess.
yeah. And then last bit of college football talk before we go into our bracket, they announced the Heisman top four, which it was pretty much as expected. Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter are the top two. Dylan Gabriel gets in there as well, and then Cam Ward, two quarterbacks. But likely the quarterbacks are not going to win it. Most likely it's Travis Hunter, but is he the most deserving? I don't know. We've had this debate a lot too, but I like Genty. I think he deserves it more than Travis Hunter with the season he's had. He's going to most likely pass Barry Sanders' record with given an extra game, but he's been fantastic, and you haven't seen that
Two extra
before.
games, no?
I think just one.
Oh, okay.
Well, accounting this game unless they win again.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So, similar to whenever one of these young receivers breaks Calvin's receiving record, I'm going to continue to deny that this counts because they played an extra game. But, yeah, we've had this conversation many times on camera, off camera. I stand the same way I've stood this entire time. I believe it should be Travis Hunter. I believe that Ashton Genty is deserving. I think he wins it in most years, but I just believe it should be Travis Hunter. When you're out there, I'd say what you want about PFF grades, they're wrong a lot of the times, but top 10 in both receiving and sorry, as a receiver and a corner is wild. He's able to be the most impactful player offensively and defensively on his team. People are going to pick apart his receiving stats and say, oh, this and that. And then people like you are going to bring up Jabril Peppers and you're going to bring up Deion Sanders and Charles Woodson. None of those guys have had the usage rate that Travis Hunter's had on both sides of the ball. So he's not just a guy like those guys who are great athletes. They're better at one, but they play both. He's the number one receiver and the number one corner on his team. And you can argue that he ranks around there if you take a couple guys out in the Big 12, he ranks around number one in both in his conference in the Big 12. I uh I think it's really hard to argue that he shouldn't win it. I think if Genty wasn't there, and obviously Genty's this explosive back, he's going to break Barry's record. He plays for a team like Boise State. That's obviously very appealing to people in the public. And you look at Travis Hunter, he's on a team with Shedeur Sanders, who's very unappealing to the public. Deion Sanders, who people are starting to get a little bit sour on, he's on a team that gets a ton of ESPN hype with Colorado. So obviously the general public is going to say the underdog needs to win. We don't need to give it to Travis Hunter. But I think we need to take a step back from that a little bit and look at what they're both doing and say both these guys are deserving, and it's understandable why either of them would win. Regardless, it's going to be Travis Hunter, though.
No, I agree that either of them, they're both deserving. I just think Genty is more deserving of it in terms of breaking a record that was thought was unbreakable in terms of rushing yards in a season.
With an extra game. But no, I agree. I mean, he's still below Melvin Gordon, right? Technically.
I think by like 10 or 20 yards, and it's not too many yards.
It's crazy. All
But I
those
mean, the
guys, like top
touchdowns
three, were
is,
right around each other. It was wild.
and you look at the last Heisman running backs that have won, he beats them in every single stat, basically. Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram,
Exactly. I
those
mean, that's
guys.
that's why I agree he would win in most years. The difference is those guys didn't have a Travis Hunter that they were competing with.
And Ashton Genty also brought his team to the playoffs. Travis
Yeah,
Hunter didn't.
yeah. No, I mean that's definitely a point you can make. I agree. If, but then I mean, we could easily just say if I hate to you, I know you hate when I bring the conferences up, but if they were,
If
did
you were
they
to
win the Big
swap the
12?
players though,
Did they
if you
win
were
the
to
Big
swap
12?
the players, do you think Colorado would have won more or less games?
More or less games with Genty?
Yes, than Travis
Less,
Hunter.
less. They
I
win
think
less.
more.
Now, I don't know if I would say that Boise State wins more with Travis Hunter. I don't think
I
I'd
think they
say that.
definitely do not. They
But I
100% do
definitely
not.
wouldn't say no because they lose their best corner and their best receiver for a running back. No, I definitely don't think they win more
Yeah, but
games.
that running back can completely change games, and that passing attack with him at running back would be almost unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that Genty is deserving. I don't agree with that point. I don't think that they would win more games. They lose their best DB, their best defensive player, and their best offensive player for another really good offensive player.
For a better offensive player.
Okay, so let's take it into like NFL terms. Let's say who's a team who has a great receiver and a great corner. Um, the Packers are a bad example. Jaden Reed isn't good enough. Let's say
No, I think that's good. Jaden Reed and Jair for Derrick Henry almost
no, I think
this season.
it'd be more like um current Christian McCaffrey and current Nick Bosa for current Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and I'm taking that trade.
Really?
I think so.
No, I'm definitely not. Definitely not. I also think that corner is a more valuable position than running back.
I
But
think unless the running back is
in this
game changing
hypothetical
like this.
situation that doesn't matter at all. But
Yeah.
right, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's gonna be Travis Hunter, most likely, right? What are the odds? He's got to be
Yeah,
a massive favorite, right?
it's like minus 800.
Yeah, so it's gonna be Travis Hunter. I think he's probably gonna be one of the top picks in the draft too. Probably not the first couple because those are gonna be probably Cam Ward and Shitter, but it's crazy Shitter is gonna go number one, man. It seems like
Yeah.
that's what's gonna happen, but
I think he's dad's on favorite, so
yeah, it's wild. And then Cam Ward, obviously, but it's going to be the quarterbacks who go to the top every time. And when you have a guy like Gabriel who's old, and you have guys who can be big playmakers like Shadur and Cam Ward, it's not that surprising when you think about it. But it's like if there was like a couple Anthony Richardsons, and Anthony Richardson didn't have like Stroud and Bryce Young in his class.
yeah.
Because I mean, you think about that class. If he didn't have Stroud and Bryce Young, it's very reasonable that he could have gone number one, despite not being like the most college productive quarterback. It's like okay, he has the tools.
Because I mean,
If
after those top two quarterbacks, there's really not many quarterbacks. I don't know if there's another quarterback going in the first round,
Right, which is why they will probably go one and two. Especially assuming it'll most likely be
unless
the
like
the
the
Jaguars get
Jags
it.
get it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But I'm assuming that it's going to be the Raiders and the Giants most likely. I
yeah. I
know
mean, as the Jags won
anything
with
could
Travis
happen.
Hunter, then Raiders, Giants, Shedeur, Cam Ward.
The Jets maybe
It has
do the
Jalen Milrow going in the
Jets
first round.
do the Jets take a quarterback?
That's a tough
Probably,
one.
right? I think you kind of have to. It's either
If
that or you're
or
basically saying we're going to ride this out with Aaron Rodgers and we'll if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out even though it hasn't shown that it can. And we'll just rebuild 3 years from now.
I mean,
That's what you're saying.
they could bolster the O line a little bit, try to help him there. Pick a top O lineman.
Yeah, I think they either trade down or take a quarterback. They would probably have to,
Yeah.
but we'll see. That's neither here nor there. We don't have
Jalen
draft talk.
Milrow is kind of the Anthony Richardson almost of, except he has so much tape on him where Anthony
Yeah,
Richardson didn't.
and
He just has
Milrow's
the
been a lot
traits.
better in college than Richardson ever
Yeah.
was.
He just has a lot of. He's got
He
Quinn Ewers in the first round. I don't really see that as much, but
yeah, I mean that'll be when you're on a winner, you can get away with not being a phenomenal prospect and still get drafted. It helps.
yeah, I mean, I was wrong about Bo Nix, so
Yeah,
do I
that's
want
what
to
I'm
be
saying.
that anti Quinn Ewers?
I don't want to make any strong takes about uh Gabriel or Ewers or any of the older guys. Like I don't want to make a strong take about them because we're seeing Bo Nix go out and do it. So,
I'm gonna keep it my strong take on Gabriel no matter what, though.
but I mean, we'd be. I still I'm not going to go out there and say I think Bo Nix is going to be a better quarterback than like a peak Jaden Daniels or a peak Caleb Williams. I
Yeah,
still think those guys
100%.
are just have more tools, which is
They do.
why they get drafted higher. But all right, let's get through this bracket. We've kind of talked about almost every hypothetical matchup at this point, so we can kind of just fly through it. I'll start with the first round here. Clemson, Texas. I'm gonna go Texas, obviously, even though I think Clemson is sneaky to cover. I mean, I'm gonna go with all the favorites here. I like Ohio State against Tennessee. I think they have a great matchup there. I really trust a veteran quarterback in Howard over Nico in that situation. Although I think Nico can be a great quarterback, he's just so young, and this is such a big spot for him on the road at Ohio State. Penn State, SMU, another game where I think SMU can maybe hang in there. Penn State has just too much up front. I think they'll muck up this game, and that's not the game that SMU likes to play. They like to go up and down the field. They don't like to play the type of ball that Penn State wants to play. So for that reason, I will be taking Penn State. Moving on here, Notre Dame, Indiana. I'm going to go with Notre Dame, like I said, but 7.5 is a lot of points. I think this is more like a 4 point game at some point. Indiana, as much as I think they are what I've been calling the fifth bye, um, with teams like Clemson in there and SMU, I don't know fully if they're in Arizona State without Tyson. I don't know if they're as much of the fifth bye. That was in a way a joke, but also kind of serious. Regardless, I think Notre Dame wins this game in the first round. Unfortunately, they have to play Georgia right after.
Yeah, I'm with you on all four. I got Texas over Clemson. They're just a better overall team. They should get that done. Ohio State over Tennessee. That's the one I think is going to be the closest out of all four of these games. I think Tennessee's defense can keep them in this game. Last time we saw Will Howard in the Ohio State offense, they did not look good. They have a lot of time to prepare for this game, so they better come out ready to go, healthy, be able to run the ball, and they need Will Howard to actually look like a quarterback and not just an embarrassing whatever that was against Michigan. SMU Penn State, it's going to be a whiteout in Penn State. We know how loud the whiteout can get. Although I have seen that they cut down massively on the Penn State student section, so there's going to be less students, which is, I guess, by the college football playoff, they want to sell more tickets and get more profit from
Right.
these games,
Yeah.
which I mean makes sense, but it's also just this should be for the college students and the kids, not you millionaires and the NCAA just to get more money.
Exactly.
But they can do whatever they want, I guess. And then IU Notre Dame, just a very interesting game if IU can get it done against a team like Notre Dame, which is a team that I like a lot. Indiana, they're very. We haven't seen them play great teams. We've seen them play Michigan, a great Michigan. They beat Michigan very easily, and then we saw them lose very poorly to Ohio State. But I'm gonna have to go with Notre Dame in this matchup. I think Notre Dame is poised to make a very deep playoff run, and going against IU, I just like them in that matchup. So that's my first four rounds. I got Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame.
Okay, moving on to the second round here. We will first matchup Texas Arizona State. Like I said, without Tyson, I fear for Arizona State here. I think they're going to really have trouble to move the ball. Texas secondary is legit one of the best in college football this year, and without your top receiver and your only receiver that's over 300 yards, it's going to be pretty brutal to have a win there. So I'm going to take Texas, of course. Ohio State, Oregon. It's tough to beat a team multiple times. Penn State showed us that you could put up points on this Oregon defense. Ohio State struggled at times offensively, but so has Penn State, and we saw Penn State be able to go out there and score a ton of points with Oregon. I trust Ohio State's defense a hell of a lot more than I trust Penn State's defense. For that reason, I'm going to take Ohio State holding it down for the Big Ten and winning the Rose Bowl, beating the number one seed in Oregon. Moving on here with Boise State playing Penn State. Like you said, I think this game will be a lot closer than people think, but I like Penn State with the easy path here. Like I said, this actually, unlike the SMU game, I think Boise State can get into a game that Penn State wants to play, and they're comfortable playing at Penn State's pace of play. But I still think the talent prevails. Penn State has way more, although they don't have a ton of talent outside, they're going to be able to do it against a Boise State defense. Moving on here. Georgia, Notre Dame. It's another situation where I think Georgia or Notre Dame will want to play at the same pace that Georgia plays at, but I think the talent is just there for Georgia. I think they're able to get the win over Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. What's interesting to me is did they like purposely keep these teams away from their geographical location in terms of bowl games? Because
Well,
you
I
would have
know
just given
these.
Georgia the Peach Bowl, right?
Yeah, I see. I was looking at that too. I feel like at as Texas, I don't know. I feel like if they gave Georgia the Sugar Bowl, another game in Atlanta against Notre Dame, I feel like that almost just be
Well, they
unfair.
did give them the Sugar Bowl.
Or I meant the Peach
Oh
Bowl in
yeah,
Atlanta. If Georgia got
yeah.
a home game for a playoff, that I don't know. That just seems a little wrong to me, especially since they're not the number one overall seed.
I'm just saying it in contrast to March Madness, where that is the case, where the higher
I
seeds
think
play
that is
closer
the
to them.
case though.
They
But
must be going away from it, I'm assuming, because otherwise you would have given Georgia the Peach Bowl. You would have
that's the only
given
one they would have switched though. Is
yeah, because Boise State would have still gotten Fiesta, and you would have just had Arizona State playing in um what is it, New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl?
yeah,
Yeah, over Atlanta, which is technically closer for them too. So I guess they purposely got away with that. Oregon still gets to play it where they want to play, but that's beside the case. I don't know if I said it. Give me Georgia to beat Notre Dame, move on to the semis.
yeah. First one, Peach Bowl, Texas, Arizona State. It's in Atlanta. Texas should dominate this game as well, like you said. Arizona down their best receiver. Texas should just beat them in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I like the Arizona State team, but Texas has just too much. Big SEC team. The Big Ten Rose Bowl, Ohio State, Oregon. This is where it starts to get tough. That first one was easy. I go back and forth on this game. As much as I don't want to bring that Michigan Ohio State game into my taking of this, just watching Ohio State offensively in that game was just a very hard watch. I think their defense is fantastic. They can slow down Oregon, but Oregon's offense looked good in the Big Ten Championship. Ohio State's offense looked atrocious with Will Howard. It's hard to beat a team twice, and especially that game was in Oregon. That's really the game that Oregon got going in. Uh, it's kind of more of a home game for Oregon. I'm going to go with Oregon to actually beat Ohio State. and move on to the next round. I want to pick Ohio State, but that Michigan game is just stuck in my head. The Fiesta Bowl in Scottsdale, Penn State, Boise State. I think I might go away from the grain here and actually pick Boise State
Wow.
to upset Penn State. I can see Penn State going in this game thinking they deserve it. James Franklin, notorious for losing to top teams. And I can see Boise State just stealing a win, kind of more of a home game for them. And then Sugar Bowl, Notre Dame, Georgia. This is, I don't know. I kind of, I want to pick Notre Dame so badly in this game to beat Georgia. And I think this is my national championship right here, Notre Dame versus Georgia. I think whoever wins this kind of wins the
Mm.
national championship. I am going to go with Georgia, though, to beat Notre Dame. More of a home game for them. They are battle tested. Notre Dame isn't as battle tested as them. I think this game's going to be close, but I'm going to give Georgia the edge as much as I really want to pick Notre Dame.
Okay, moving on here to what I am looking at as my hardest pick of this entire bracket for me, and that's Ohio State versus Texas. I'm going back and forth on it. These are the top two pass defenses in football. Texas one, Ohio State two. But I trust Quinn Ewers and the Texas offense ability more to score points than I do with Will Howard and Ohio State. For that reason, I'm going to take Texas, and I think you're realizing where I'm going with this with this bracket now.
I see where
But
you're going. I knew this is where you were going with it.
I like Ohio State as a future because I like their value. I don't like Texas's value as much, being the second most favorite to win this bracket, or maybe it's third most. I don't know. I think they are favored over Georgia now after the bracket got released. But I'm gonna go with Texas here just because in a game where it's gonna come down to whichever team could have more passing success, I trust Quinn Ewers in Texas a little bit more. I think this is an extremely low scoring game. I think we see something like very similar to what we saw in the Georgia Texas SEC title game. I think we see that here. Gonna take Texas. Georgia, Penn State. Once again, I think this will be another low scoring game. I think we'll see a weirdly low amount of low scoring games in this playoff. I'm going to be hammering unders this entire time. I think we're going to see a lot of them. But Georgia, like you said, more battle tested. Penn State finds their way into the sixth seed solely because they were able to compete in that Big Ten title game against Oregon. If they lose that game by 20 points, they're probably sitting at the eighth seed right now, or they're probably sitting at the seventh seed where Notre Dame is playing Indiana in the first round. But they move themselves up. They get a couple easy-ish games in SMU and Boise State, but I think they meet their maker here with Georgia. I think Georgia, with or without Carson Beck, gets the win. And yeah, that's my semifinals.
Yeah, I originally had the winner of Ohio State and Oregon going to the national championship, but then I looked at what bowl game that would be. Shocker, it's the Cotton Bowl, which is in Dallas, Texas, which gives Texas essentially a home game, even though they'd be playing Oregon, who'd be the one seed. I, as much as the SEC can complain about not getting Bama in, these draws that the SEC got work pretty much perfectly for them to get a Georgia Texas national championship. They should both make it there, and that's actually what I am going to pick: Texas versus Georgia in the national championship. As much as I don't want it, Texas needs to beat Clemson and Arizona State to get to a home game in Texas, and Georgia needs to beat Notre Dame or IU, which would be their only challenging game in the Sugar Bowl, which is in NOLA. They have just the geographical advantage in all of these games, and it's as unfortunate as it is. I got Georgia, Texas.
Just means more. Sometimes it just means more.
Maybe it'll
But
mean more, but they'll decide to start putting some of these big bowl games now up in the Midwest and in the East, though. If this is how they're going to do the bracket,
yeah, it's the heart. It's the heart of college football is in the South though. And
but
that's tough to beat. I mean, which bowl game are we moving here? These are all classic games. Where are you gonna? I mean, obviously you're not gonna move the Rose Bowl. Orange Bowl's in
Miami.
yeah. I mean,
I
it's
mean,
it's southeast, but it's still not like
in this case,
the
though,
Texas Georgia region.
either Penn State or Boise State would have to go to Miami to play Georgia.
Yeah,
Both cross country,
yeah.
basically.
Penn State's a little closer, but yeah, that's tough. Boise's gonna be in a tough spot regardless. Any Northeast
I
team
mean, they get the
or
Fiesta
Northwest
Bowl.
team,
It's right there for them. The Fiesta Bowl's in Arizona. That's fine.
yeah, that which they ended up getting,
And the
and
Fiesta Bowl and the
Arizona
Rose
State was
Bowl are
pissed.
both out west, and the rest of them are in the south.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm gonna take oh God,
I can see them moving one of these bowls, though.
something's telling me to take Texas,
Something
but
to Indy.
I'm gonna rock with the dogs. I felt something with the dogs. They played the hardest schedule all year. They're most if they played, I'm not, I'm not even gonna open that can of worms. But they probably would have been the one seed if they didn't play their schedule. Regardless, they end up as the two with a couple of losses. I like Georgia to beat Texas. I know it's hard to beat a team three times, but sometimes when you beat a team a couple times, that boogeyman effect comes into play. And when you can't score against a defense, and as much as I do like Quinn Ewers at times, I'm not the most confident in Quinn Ewers to be able to be the guy that slays this Georgia defense. Kirby's been there. Sark is a good coach, but he hasn't been there. I'm gonna take the Dogs to win the national championship.
Yeah,
Quarterback coming down the track.
I'm gonna take Georgia as well to win the national championship. I think they are more battle tested. They play better teams. They beat Texas twice. I think they can beat them three times in a season. I don't trust their offense with Carson Beck or Gunnar Stockton, whoever's at quarterback. I just trust their defense to dominate games, basically win it for them. We also have another week before these games start, so maybe some of these picks change, but right now I got Georgia winning it all.
Yeah, I mean, even when you say that about the Cotton Bowl, I mean that just makes me want to pick Texas even more. And that, I mean, it makes it make a little more sense why they're actually tied for the number one odds to win the college football playoff at plus 360.
I can
And
see them adding one of these bowl games to Indy or somewhere in the Midwest. Maybe Detroit.
Detroit Ford Field bowl game.
I can see it happening. Or I mean, what is that the Motor City Bowl or something? There's one in
Uh,
Detroit, isn't there?
um, you might be thinking of the MAC championship.
I know the MAC Championship's there, but I thought they had a bowl game.
I'm trying to think, do they? It's hard for me to keep track of all these bowl game locations. I
Maybe they
barely,
don't.
I barely know the fucking big ones sometimes, but. Yeah, it's looking like an all SEC national championship is pretty much guaranteed now. I'd say that we picked them both,
I
but
I wouldn't say that.
that will, I believe, do it for our college football talk. Extensive talk with not a ton of games, but we have 16 games to
Oh,
preview.
the game above Sports Bowl is in Detroit.
The Sports Bowl.
The teams involved in the game above Sports Bowl, the Pitt Panthers and Toledo Rockets.
Toledo. Toledo's
So
right there.
so maybe the game above Sports Bowl becomes a CFP bowl game.
That would be great. The Sports Bowl is such a funny name. They
I can
need
see.
we need a
Let's add the
football
Pop Tart
bowl.
Bowl in.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Where's the Pop Tart Bowl at in North Carolina?
Uh,
That was a random guess. I don't even know why that came out of me, but
Orlando. It's in
yeah,
Orlando. They
neither
can move that
close.
though. They can move that.
Yeah.
The
I think you're
Pinstripe
you're
Bowl. It's
you're
always a
just
big
coming to a
Fenway Bowl, obviously.
realization that football, especially college football, runs through the Southeast. It just does.
Well, I
It's
mean,
just
they put them in the Southeast because of the weather. Normally, they don't want to have to deal with
well, yeah, but a lot of these games are indoor anyways.
yeah.
Like most of
But
them are indoors.
they weren't always indoors. Like the Cotton Bowl used to have
Right,
its own
right, right,
stadium.
right.
Miami's warm weather.
I think warm weather definitely plays a part, but I also think the biggest brands being in the Southeast also plays a big part.
I mean, that does play a big part. But if you're gonna have a 12-team bracket, you're gonna have teams, especially Big Ten teams, multiple times a year
Yeah.
from other
So
parts of the world.
do you change iconic bowls? People would be livid at
I
that.
think you can filter some of them.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have the six, and you want the six to be the best teams.
Like you're saying, you don't want the 68 Ventures Bowl to be a playoff game.
It's which one are you going to take out? The Fiesta,
That's in
probably,
Mobile,
right?
Alabama. I mean, you can make the Fiesta Bowl still a New Year's Day bowl. That doesn't have to change.
It's just the fact that it needs to be the best. I guess they already got rid of the fact that it needs to be a team from one conference and a team from another.
Yeah.
So I guess they did already kind of break that tradition, and no one seemed to really bat an eye at that. Because you got to have those
Except
bowls.
old
You got
heads.
to
Old
have
heads
the
have
Cotton
had it
Bowl.
an
You
eye.
got to have the Rose Bowl. You got to have the Orange Bowl. I guess they don't have Citrus, but Citrus is also in what Tallahassee, I think.
Yeah. Something
So
like that.
yeah,
Orlando.
yeah. Oh, okay. I knew it was in Florida. But we can move on now to our 16 game previews we have. We'll start with Thursday night football. Rams at 49ers. 49ers reestablished a good offense last week. I expect that to continue this week going against this Rams defense that isn't as great as, honestly, as even the Bears defense. Rams run defense has been really, really bad. San Francisco with Guriendo should run all over them, I assume. San Francisco's run defense has not been great, but their pass defense has been great. I think that will definitely come into play in a game like this. I could see Kyron having a big game, but I don't think we're going to see that massive Puka. Cooper Kupp Stafford game that we've seen in the past couple of weeks. San Francisco, they don't have Trent Williams or Nick Bosa right now. It doesn't really look like they're going to play either. They both had DNPs on Monday, so you don't really know there, but hopefully for them, they can get one of those two back at the very least. Rams have struggled in the red zone all year, but the Niners are ranked 31st in red zone defense. So I like the Rams to be able to not be as bad as they've been for most of the year. They were great in the red zone last week against the Bills. I expect that to continue this week. Rams O-line, though, is a very questionable unit. The 49ers absolutely need to establish a pass rush with or without Nick Bosa in this game. 49ers are turnover prone. The Rams don't turn it over as much. So the Rams need to continue those trends. They need to win the turnover battle this game in San Francisco. Rams did have a late comeback in their last win versus San Francisco at home, but I trust defense a little bit more. I lean San Francisco here. I'm going to go Niners minus 2.5.
Yeah, we saw last time we saw this Rams offense last week. They were on fire. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp both had fantastic games. They need to stay hot. Stafford needs to stay hot in this game. Both of these teams need to win this game. It's essentially a playoff game to stay in the division race. 49ers have to win out overall, basically, to stay in that race. Deebo Samuel has been disappointing this season. We talked about it yesterday that he seems to be a little upset about the lack getting the ball and saying he's just not getting the ball. The community notes did what's it called? Community note him or whatever and say that he leads the NFL in drops, which was pretty funny. The Niners get Dre Greenlaw potentially back for this game. He's been out with a torn Achilles since the Super Bowl last season. That could be a boost to their linebacking room. I wouldn't expect him to be too effective overall because that's a very hard injury to come back from, but it could be a huge moral boost for some of these guys on defense. They could have a great game. They're third best in terms of yards per game. Brock Purdy looked great last week with Jawan Jennings. I think they get Deebo Samuel more involved, and hopefully he doesn't drop it. 49ers have had the Rams number since around 2018, since Shanahan kind of started to come around. Have lost the last two to the Rams, though. I'm with you. Actually, though, I am going to go with the 49ers minus 2.5. Kind of shocked they were favorites, but
Yeah, especially with the whole Shanahan not being great against McVay thing that I'm realizing now, but still I'm gonna rock with the Niners. Um, okay, moving on here to Ravens at Giants. Huge 15-point road spread here, which is very interesting. Giants did not cut or did cover for us last week for the first time in a long time. Maybe they could do that again this week. Ravens historically do have off games versus bad teams. We do get Lamar versus the NFC, so I would assume he's definitely at least going to get the win, but we're not really talking about that here. Giants defense has enough talent where I feel like they shouldn't be two touchdown dogs at home, but they've been so bad. Ravens pass defense is pretty bad. Maybe the Giants can find a little bit of success through the air, although I think the Ravens pass rush should be able to get home. The Ravens are good at protecting Lamar as well. The Giants pass rush is good, so if they can get home to Lamar, it's hard to sack him, but if you can put him under pressure, that'll help a lot. This is also the matchup of the worst and best offensive red zone teams in the Giants and the Ravens. Giants are not great at forcing turnovers, so I don't really expect them to do that here. But as a betting man, I can't take a 15-point road favorite, so I'm gonna have to take the Giants plus 15. When I saw the line, I was like, well, no matter what my reasoning is here, I have to take the Giants.
yeah, it's such a big spread that you don't want to pick it. The Giants won't be able to really run the ball at all this game. Niners or the Ravens do have a great run defense. Could be in Drew Lock's hands for a great part of this game, and I can see him struggling a lot. The Ravens secondary isn't great, but we saw last week Drew Lock is not a very good NFL quarterback, especially in this Giants offense. Giants are still winless at home. Ravens are coming off of a bye week. Could be time was good for them to get healthy, get some guys back, and let guys like Justin Tucker rest a little bit. Hopefully, he can come back from this bye week and be kicking better. The Ravens will win this game. I'd say that almost for certainty. I think Lamar and this offense can put up a big number against the Giants defense, and I really don't see the Giants being able to score. 14.5 points is just so much. I am still gonna surprisingly go with the Ravens minus 14.5. I think they get it done.
All right, moving on here to, by the way, if that's a home game, I'm for sure taking the Ravens, but the road
Yeah.
aspect kills me. Moving on here to Commanders at Saints. Commanders are coming off of a bye and a good win before the bye, but they do have to travel to New Orleans. New Orleans is, we talked about it last episode, historically bad at tanking. Like they're just really, really bad at tanking. So I see them trying to win this game probably. No Carr for the Saints hurts them really, really badly. Probably is a big reason for the 7.5 point line. Nola's been pretty bad defensively on both ends, but they're solid in the red zone and they're solid at forcing turnovers, and that's two things that can definitely help when you're playing against Commanders team. Commanders are the fourth worst defensive team in the red zone too, so if Rattler or whoever, it could also be Ben DiNucci who just got signed from the Cowboys. If they can get to the red zone, they'll probably have some success down there. Washington does not turn it over much, so this is a matchup of a team that can force turnovers and a team that holds onto the ball. So Nola can definitely get an advantage there if they could win the turnover battle. I think the Commanders are a good team, but I don't like them as touchdown favorites in a tough environment. So I'm gonna take the Saints plus 7.5 in this game.
Yeah, another big spread. Couple games like that this week. We don't know who will be in the quarterback, like you said, Derek Carr out for the seasons. They don't have too many weapons outside of Alvin Kamara, the running back, to really overcome that big loss. MVS has been nice for them. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Juwan Johnson's a solid tight end, but I really don't think they have too much. The Commanders' defense has been solid this season. I think they can really slow down the Saints' offense, make them not get much. Like last time the Commanders played a bad team, they went out there and got a big lead against the Titans early and dominated that game. I think they're going to try to do that again. Coming off of a bye, they need to issue some statements that they're really this good team that can battle. They're still in the playoff hunt. They could still find themselves out of it, but right now they're looking pretty solid. Saints are not a great defense against the run. I think the Commanders could run the ball very well with Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson. So I'm going to go with Commanders minus 7.5.
Okay, moving on here to Chiefs at Browns. Chiefs have not covered in 7 games, and this line is absurd at 4 points. Chiefs 4 point favorites in this game against the Browns. The Browns have been one of the best passing teams in football recently. The Chiefs are a team that you can pass against if you do not have a run game like the Browns do not. Cleveland has been solid in pass defense. Maybe can force Mahomes into a pick or two if they're able to. Kansas City has not been great in the red zone defensively. They've kicked a ton of field goals as a whole, especially late here in the season. So maybe Cleveland can be great down there. Kansas City hasn't had a great pass rush all year either. They definitely have some holes in their team, but everyone gets home versus the Cleveland quarterback, so they should definitely have a pass rush in this one. Browns are super turnover prone, which against a team like Kansas City, you would think that would be bad, but Kansas City also doesn't force a ton of turnovers. Jameis will throw you a couple picks. That's just the Jameis experience, so you got to expect that. But if the Browns can go down there and score a ton of touchdowns as well, then they're going to be in this game. I want to not fall into the trap here of Kansas City -4, especially given the circumstances. But when Schefter is out there tweeting about spreads, lines move, and a lot of people are going to see that Schefter tweet where it says they haven't covered in 7 games and think, oh, let me take them here against the Brown, or let me take the Browns here. That's a weird line for the Browns. They shouldn't be this close to being a favorite in this game. And for that reason, I'm going to try to game the system and take the Chiefs, even though it feels this is a game where usually it's a trap to take the Chiefs. I feel like the trap might be this low spread for the Browns at +4.
Yeah, I go back and forth on this one. Like you said, Chiefs are 0-7 in their last 7 games against the spread. No team has ever won a Super Bowl after losing 6 straight games versus the spread, and we see that here. They find ways to play games close. I can see Jameis passing the ball well and keeping them in this game. They won't really have a run game, but they've struggled to run the ball very well already. Chubb hasn't been great since coming back. Jerome Ford either. I can see them staying in this game and keeping it close. Maybe a late field goal for the Chiefs wins it again. I was feeling confident picking the Browns +4 until you said that thing about the Schefter tweet. But I'll stick with it. I think the Browns +4. The Chiefs just have played games so close. I've gotten burned by them so many times on here. Maybe I'm falling for the trap, or maybe you're falling for the trap. Who knows? But I'm gonna go with the Browns +4.
It gets to a point as a gambler where you start to recognize trap lines and you start to stay away from traps, and then you get deeper and deeper into the game, and now I'm sitting here being like the trap is the trap, which is
Yeah,
crazy to try to game it that way and not look at the actual game. But I'm not afraid to admit I'm deep in. So
yeah.
I'm gonna stick with the Chiefs there. Um we can move on now to Dolphins at Texans. We talked about it earlier this week about how this slate is all good games and horrible games. This is a great game here. Dolphins at Texans. Texans coming off of a bye week. They have a huge game here. They were really, really cold offensively going into the bye week. You'd be dumb to assume that they're going to fix it all in the bye week, but you'd also say that they really can't be worse than they were before the bye week coming out of the bye week. Dolphins offense is great. They have not been as good on the road though as they always are. Miami has been great defensively. I expect a decently low scoring game here. Houston has struggled in the red zone defensively. Houston struggles versus good pass rushes. Miami does have the second worst pass rush in football, which is pretty interesting considering they're great defensively everywhere else. Houston holds on to the ball. Miami doesn't force a ton of turnovers either. I'm gonna rock with the Texans coming off a bye to cover at home at -3.
Yeah, Texans coming off of a bye at home. They haven't looked particularly great this season. They've struggled a lot more than we would have expected them to. I can see them struggling to move the ball as well in this game. The Dolphins' defense has been good all season, but struggled last week. Nico Collins for the Texans has been very good. Him and CJ Stroud have been great. But overall, this Texans offense hasn't moved the ball well. They need Joe Mixon to get going in this game as well. Dolphins are still a long shot to make the playoffs, but they have a chance. They got the job done last week against the Jets. They need to continue to win. It's an indoor stadium, so the weather's not going to affect the game. Dolphins are better at home than on the road. They're only 2-4 in road games so far this year. But this is a playoff game for Miami. It's not as much for Houston. I think Miami's going to have their back against the wall and go out and win this game, or at least keep it close, maybe push. I'm going to go with Dolphins +3. I've been riding with them recently. Hurt me last week, but overall it's been solid. I think they get the job done. Big Tyreek Hill game, another big Tua game, and they continue this little bit of a run. And if the Texans lose, I mean, the Texans have a pretty rough schedule. I don't have it in front of me. If they lose this game and the Dolphins continue to win, they could, that tiebreaker against the Texans, if the Colts potentially jump the Texans, could be huge for maybe just stealing a playoff spot overall, and the Texans missing the playoffs. But if Houston wins this game, they're in no matter what. I'm pretty sure
Houston could end up being the Jags from last year.
they could be. I mean, they
Great
haven't looked
start,
great.
looking like an up and coming team. Then they lose some games, drop the division, then drop out.
I mean, and it's very similar to the Jags. If that were to happen, they had a great start record wise, but when you're watching them, they don't look as good as you want them to look.
Hmm.
But I mean,
Exactly.
they could go out there and just dominate this game and solidify themselves in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. But we'll move on here to Bengals and Titans. This is one of the worst ones of the week. Bengals need to win out. It's not definitely not the worst, actually. I'm looking at the next two are way worse. But Bengals need to win out. They're coming off of a short week playing on Monday Night Football in the Homer Simpson game. Titans pass defense versus Bengals pass offense. Yeah, we need to recap that game.
Yeah,
You know
I
what?
just realized it.
You know what? Should we boycott it?
I mean, we could just say that
Should
the
we
Bengals
boycott
looked
it?
better and won.
Yeah, yeah. We'll just say that Bengals
Jamar
look.
Chase is a top two receiver in the league, and
Yeah.
yeah,
We talked about college football for like an hour, so there's really nothing we got to say about that game. So, um, Bengals, like you said, they looked fine on Monday Night Football. Jamar Chase, like you said, was great, and that's about it. They once again like to play in close games. Jamar Chase probably should have went down, but he just had to score. That's mainly what I have to say about that game.
got a couple
And
people into the fantasy football playoffs doing that.
T Higgins kept a couple people out doing
Yeah,
that. But
he
Titan
apologized though.
yeah, he did apologize. Titans, one of the worst against the spread teams in football, as we've been saying for the past couple of weeks. Cincinnati's defense is horrible, but I'm done betting on the Titans offense. At this point, it's getting old. Despite a good defense, Titans are 27th in red zone defense, and since he is second in red zone offense, so they should be able to score whenever they get down there. Trey Hendrickson should have a pretty good day versus Battle line. Titans, they turn it over a ton. I think the Bengals are going to find ways to force turnovers, even with their bad defense. And I don't like taking Cincy as a 5 point favorite on the road, but the Titans can't cover shit, so I'm gonna take the Bengals -5.
Yeah, the Titans can't cover. They can't cover anything. They can't do. I picked them multiple weeks now, and they continue to fail me. Bengals covered last week against the Cowboys. Like you said, we didn't talk about it, but they looked great offensively and struggled defensively. What's new? That's pretty much the story for the Bengals for the entire season so far this year. Jamar Chase was great. Chase Brown has been a great player for them as well, the running back. I think they both could have big games here against the Tennessee Titans. It's another good matchup, I feel like, for Tennessee overall, except for the red zone, like you said. But the Titans should be able to pass the ball and move the ball against the Bengals. But we saw last week Will Levis going against one of the worst secondaries and teams against the pass, and they were unable to reach the end zone. So I can't fathom picking with the Titans for basically the rest of the season at this point. I'm going to go with the Bengals -5 in this one. They were 5.5 point favorites against the Cowboys, and they're only 5 point favorites against the Titans. It's a little interesting, but I think they get it done. And Joe Burrow has been great. Even hopefully his house getting robbed doesn't hurt him. But
Right.
He's been great this season.
Yeah. Moving on here to Jets and Jaguars. Horrible game here. Jets have been favored, I think, more than any
Yeah.
3-10 team ever. They have to be favored more. It's crazy. I mean, they're just playing such a bad schedule, and they're 3-10. But Jets had their best passing game of the year last week, and they get to face a bad secondary here in Jacksonville. Both teams are about equal in the red zone. Whoever performs better down there is most likely going to win this game. Jets have to be able to get home. Jacksonville's offensive line surprisingly isn't that bad. Hopefully the Jets pass rush can be good. They've been pretty solid this year. Both teams force turnovers. Jacksonville just turns it over a lot more than the Jets do. I couldn't care less about this game, but if we're boycotting things, I think I might boycott the Jets, and I'm going to take Jacksonville +3.
Yeah, both these teams are good at well, actually no, the Jags are pretty good at not screwing up their tank, where the Jets notoriously are very good at screwing up their tank
It's
and
true. This
giving
game,
themselves
yeah.
a worse pick. They looked good last week offensively. They got the ball to Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, both had very good games. Defensively, they haven't been as great as you would have wanted to see. They've been good versus the pass, not as good versus the run. You were expecting them to be one of the best defensive teams in the league. Haven't really seen that. Jets are away from home. I think I see them somehow winning this game and doing the classic Jets and hurting their draft pick. Where the Jags are very good at tanking. Mac Jones struggled last week, but was able to get the win. That I guess hurt their tank, but I just don't have too much to say about the Jags team. I'm gonna pick the Jets. They looked better last week. This game really only matters for draft stock at this point.
Okay, moving on here to Cowboys at Panthers, another game that really only matters for draft stock, another pointless game. Panthers finally find themselves as a favorite for, I believe, the first time this year as they're favored in this game. Cowboys offense has not been that bad. They weren't great last game against the Bengals, that game that we talked about extensively. But the Panthers defense is improving. Panthers offense is also finding some success. Bryce Young's been a lot better on the second half of the year. They've been solid in the run game as well. And this is a game against the Cowboys where they should be able to run the hell out of the ball. They've been much better at home as well. It feels like the Panthers have played almost all of their games the past 2 months at home since London. It feels like that. But Carolina allows the fifth least sacks per game. They should be able to withstand a pass rush from the Cowboys. Cowboys turn the ball over a ton. I like this matchup for the Panthers. I think at this point they're a better team than the Cowboys. So I'm going to take the Panthers -2.5.
Yeah, and I wanted to say the Jets were 4-9 versus the spread, so they've been bad versus the spread. But
Yeah,
going to this game, Cowboys do lose DeMarvion Overshown for the rest of the season, which is a kind of a big loss. He's been emerging for them as a very good pass rusher and just a good
bad
defensive
injury too.
player. And yes, very bad, torn ACL, MCL, PCL, pretty much everything in
I
his
don't
knee.
even know how you
That's
could do that.
yeah, it's very, very sad to see. He's been one rare bright spot for the Cowboys so far this season. In this game, I'm going to go with the Panthers as well. Bryce Young has looked like a potential franchise quarterback lately, making big throws. Just hasn't kind of had the little break we saw last week. Xavier Legette had a bad drop that really hurt him. They could have won that game. He's been great with Adam Thielen. Hopefully, they're able to get Jalen Coker back this week and kind of have a nice wide receiver trio there, with Jatavion Sanders being a solid tight end for him. Cowboys, well, we didn't talk about the muffed punt that they had. That really killed them in that game. They found a way to lose there. That was very embarrassing to watch. This team is not going to make the playoffs. They need to go in the offseason, get some weapons, running back, some maybe a little bit of depth on the O line, boost the defense. I still think this team can be a playoff contender next year with the guys they have. CD, they have weapons. They need to get deeper with, well, I guess they have CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson, but they need to get some deeper weapons. Defensively, they have guys that can make plays. I think they can make a run next year, but at this point, you're kind of just playing for draft stock. Carolina's more motivated right now. Bryce Young has his team playing better than they have in any time in the past 2 seasons. So I'm going to go Panthers -2.5 to finally break through and get another win.
Gotta start giving Dave Canales some credit too.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely
He's
deserves it.
turned it around.
Yeah, I mean they're still 3-10, but yeah, he's turned it
He
around
got
a
a
little
lot of
bit.
hate quickly with how
Yeah,
Bryce Young looked and saying they shouldn't have fired him. But
yeah, give him a chance. Can't keep firing your head coach after the first year every year.
yeah, definitely not.
To be fair, are Matt Rule and Frank Reich not great coaches at this point in their career? Probably not.
Yeah,
But
unfortunately.
Matt Rule
Um,
barely clinched the bowl game this
Feels
year.
good to get this one. Woo!
Yeah.
Woo! That
Moving
video
on
still
here.
hurts me to this day.
Moving on here to Colts at Broncos. Both teams coming off buys here. We talked about this game like a month ago as being one of the most impactful games for that AFC wild card race. It definitely is. Broncos open as 5-point favorites in this game, or is it 4 or 5?
It's down to three,
It's down to three.
3.5.
Ooh, three
I
and a
see
half or
th
three.
I see 3.5 with the Broncos. Most people on the Broncos side, a large majority on the Broncos side.
Okay, interesting. Okay, both teams have 18 takeaways this year, but the Broncos hold on to the ball a lot better. Indy's offensive line is up and down. The Broncos do have the best pass rush in football right now, so if they can get to Anthony Richardson, that would be great for them. Broncos' red zone defense is second. They should be able to force some gay field goals in this game. Sean Payton is 10-6 off a bye. I think the Broncos are going to win this game. I like the Colts to compete, though. I originally had the Colts when I thought it was a 5-point line, but at 3.5, I'm gonna switch it over to Denver and take the horses minus 3.5.
That's okay. Colts have gotten the better of the Broncos head to head in a lot of the recent matchups overall. This is
You picked the Bears, don't forget. I mean, you did win, but
wait, what do you mean?
against the Lions a couple weeks ago on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and I won.
Yeah, no, you did win, but this one's TBD.
Sure. This is basically a playoff game almost for both teams. If the Broncos win, they're essentially in. The Colts need to win to stay alive for the division and this race here. Two young, promising quarterbacks. Bo Nix has looked great. Anthony Richardson has looked better since coming back from getting benched. It's the Manning Bowl. A lot of different storylines going around this game. Before the bye, Anthony Richardson looked a lot better, led the Colts to a 2-run record with that one loss being the best team in football. Colts have to treat this game as a do or die game. Everything's on the table. Their defense in games like this, we've seen last year against the Texans, a couple games against the Texans this year in these big games, they tend to give up big plays early. They can't let that happen in this one. They have to stay stout. They need to really stop the Broncos' rushing attack. The Broncos are going to want to rush the ball to get Bo Nix, open up the field for him. They need big games from EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin to maybe find a way to get a turnover and continue to bend, don't break defense. Offensively, they have a chance. Like you said, the Broncos have a very good pass rush. Anthony Richardson, since overall when he's starting, doesn't get sacked often. He finds a way to throw it away. That's why his completion percentage is so poor. The Broncos have the sixth best run defense. They have been susceptible against the pass, so that's where Anthony Richardson could make some big plays. Colts should get Josh Downs back for this game, which would be huge. They really just need their defense to step up. Games in Denver, the conditions are going to be rough for the Colts. They haven't played in a mountainous area in a long time. It's a good matchup for the Broncos, but I don't care. I'm taking the Colts plus 3.5. I can't bet against this Colts. They've been better with Anthony Richardson back. They've played a couple games with their back against the wall, needed game-winning drives from him, and he came out and delivered. And I like them to win this game, get establish themselves in the playoff hunt and maybe the division race. So I got Colts plus 3.5. It just jumped to 4, so
Okay. Um,
it's teetering around there.
I'll stick with the. Actually, I'll stick with the horses. I'll stick with the horses.
Okay, which one?
Fuck the Broncos. Moving on here to Bucks at Chargers. A long trip here for a great game for Tampa Bay. Bucks are built for a game like this, where they're a great run defense team. They can also throw the ball and run the ball on offense. Should be a fairly low scoring game, I think, in this one. One of the league's best offenses versus one of the league's best defenses. I have more of a worry about the Chargers scoring points in this game than I do about Tampa Bay, and that's even with Tampa Bay's questionable secondary. Maybe Herbert has a big game at home against the secondary, but I don't know. No Winfield, like you said. Chargers' weakness at times is their offensive line, but Tampa Bay does not have a great pass rush. I'm very back and forth on this game. I really don't know who to pick. A great game here, and usually when I'm back and forth, I just end up taking the dog. So I'll take Tampa plus 3.
Since their Week 11 bye, Bucks have gone 3-0, winning those games, two of them by at least 15 points. They've been very good in those games, averaging 438 yards per game. Those three games were against the Giants, Panthers, and Raiders, but they still dominated those games. They're going to go against the Chargers defense that overall this season has been very, very good. But in the past four games, they are giving up 372 yards per game, which is not great. The first 9 games, they only gave up about 300 yards per game, so that's a 72-yard difference. And then on the offensive side of the ball for the Chargers, they're missing just so many weapons right now. They don't have too much. Herbert's going to have to throw to Josh Palmer, Stone Smart, Quentin Johnson, Will Dissly, handing the ball to guys like Gus Edwards, Kimani Vidal. I just see the Chargers struggling in this game to move the ball and score points. Like we mentioned, Antoine Winfield's going to be out for a little bit of time. That could be huge for this Buccaneers defense that's already been struggling. But I just think Baker's going to move the ball enough, and they don't have too many weapons to worry about outside of Herbert's arm. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers to travel the country and win the game, but I'm going to go Bucks +3.
Okay, we've made it. Bills at Lions. Full transparency, I graduate college in the middle of this game. Not the middle. I guess a little bit before. Graduation's at 2:30, 2:30 to 4:30. This game starts at 4:30. So we'll be getting out of the ceremony and meeting up with everybody during like the first couple drives of this game. So I'm definitely nervous for that, but I will be dialed in regardless. The headphones will be there. I asked my mom earlier today. I said, "Would it be crazy if I brought my laptop?" And she said it would be crazy if I brought my laptop. So I'm not gonna do that. And I saw on the thing you're not allowed to bring bags in,
Oh.
so that would
Are you
just
going
make
out
it
during the game or after the game?
after. No, we're watching the game and then going out.
Okay, I was gonna
I'm
say.
not. I mean, I'm gonna be driving home, but I'll be locked in driving home, regardless. Huge game here for two teams who really want to buy. A lot more achievable for the Lions than it is for the Bills, but both teams need this game. I guess actually I shouldn't say that because this is the least important game on the Lions schedule going forward. Really, you got to win the NFC games. You need that tiebreaker versus the Eagles if it comes to that, and this game truly doesn't matter for that. So that scares me a little bit, but still, you want to get up versus the best teams. You're never not going to get up for a game like this. Both, I believe CBS will be on set in
Yeah.
Detroit for this game. So I don't think that's only the second time they've done that this year because they were
They
in
did it in
Buffalo,
Buffalo.
Buffalo for
Yes.
Chiefs Bills, and now in Detroit for Lions Bills. So I'm excited for that. Both teams win the turnover battle in most games, so that will probably be the difference here. Two of the best turnover differential teams in football. Lions should get some guys back. You're looking at the big six of injured guys who can come back with Decker, Levi Onwuzurike, Josh Pascal, Oli McNeil, DJ Reader, and Brian Branch. I think they'll get Deck back. I think they'll get Branch, Reader, and a lean back. Levi and Josh Pascal. It's back and forth. We don't really know about them, but if you can get even three of those guys back, you're going to be in a much better spot than you were last week. Buffalo's run defense is a real concern. I think the Lions should be able to run all over them in this game and play how they want to play. Bills' third down and red zone defense are not great. We spoke about it all year. Those are two of the Lions' specialties, or those areas on offense and defense. So I think the Lions have an advantage there. Bills are much better at home than they are on the road, and they're coming off of a bad road loss in LA. Bills protect Josh Allen very well. Lions pass rush that hasn't always been the best is gonna have to find some success in this game. Should be a very close game. The Lions do struggle versus mobile quarterbacks, but I like the Lions here. Give me Lions -2.5. So go ahead and say why you're picking the Bills.
Well, I know you say it's a home game for the Lions, but I mean, the Bills have also played a home game in the same
It's
stadium,
true.
so
It's true.
that could be
It's
huge.
true.
We talk about how the Bills are a lot better in
The
home
Sport
games.
Bowl stadium.
Yeah. Yeah. The Bills are a lot better in home games. I don't know if this will be considered a home stadium for them or not. I guess a secondary
Don't
stadium.
even don't even disrespect us like that.
A secondary stadium will do. The Bills defense has struggled against the run. I think that's going to be the main factor in this game. The Bills really needed that win last week to stay in the hunt for that first overall seed. I think this is a game that they kind of just have a rough matchup on the road against a team that likes to run the ball and can dominate. Their offense was great last week versus the Rams. They get to go against a defense that has a lot of injuries, but does have a little bit of an extended week off playing on Thursday to get healthier for this game. I just don't like this matchup for the Bills on the road. They have played a home game in Ford Field, so if they go out and play like it's a home game, who knows? But I like the Lions to continue winning. They need to get that win to continue to look for the double bye and win the division at this point with the Vikings playing so well. I think the Lions are going to win this game at home and get it done with that rushing attack. They have so many weapons they can throw to. The Rams dominated throwing the ball to their outside guys with Nakua and Cup. Jameson Williams and Amon Ra could both have a big game as well, and I think the Lions get it done and cover in this one, 2.5.
A win would give the Lions their most in franchise history, breaking last year. But this is
It'd
what?
be nice to do it at home too.
Yeah, it'd be nice to do it at home. They also have Week 18 versus Minnesota. Hopefully, they don't go 0-3 leading up to that game. But yeah, this just further. ensures this Lions team, regardless of what happens in the playoffs, is most likely the best Lions team of all time. Moving on here to Steelers at Eagles. Another great game here. Steelers run defense is ranked fourth in the league. That's bad for Philly, a team that almost has to run the ball. We talked about it on the last episode, the beef with Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. Jalen Hurts can't really pass the ball right now. That could be a problem for them. I'm worried for the Steelers offense. I like the under in this game. I don't think either team is going to have a ton of success offensively. Philly's good in the red zone defensively and really bad uh, for a bad red zone team offensively in Pittsburgh. So I'm very worried about the Steelers. I think they're going to have to settle for a lot of field goals if they get down there. And when they get down there, they're going against a team that's good in the red zone defensively. And that's been like the Achilles heel of the Steelers all year. Both teams give up a decent amount of sacks. Both pass rushers, I think, will find a lot of success in this game. Both teams have exactly 11 turnovers, but the Steelers do force more turnovers than any other team in football. Whichever team is better on third down, I think probably wins this game. This is too big of a spread for me, though. I'm going to take the Steelers +5.
Yeah, this is one I go back and forth on. These are two very good teams. The Steelers have started their gauntlet of tough teams now. They've been great all season. The last time the Steelers won a football game in Philadelphia was 1965. They've been 0-10 in their last 10 games versus the Eagles. The big thing, like you said, is the rushing attack. Only six teams in the NFL are giving up less than 100 rushing yards per game. One of those is the Steelers. Saquon has been great for the Eagles running the ball all season. He's broken their franchise records in rushing yards per game in only 13 games so far this year. He's been playing like an MVP candidate. He's on pace right now to break Eric Dickerson's single season rushing record of 2,122 yards. The passing attack, like you said, like we said yesterday on the recap, has been bad for the Eagles. Hurts has been held under 180 passing yards in three straight games now. Eagles are 3-0 in those games, but they are starting to have some drama. AJ Brown, he's been open. I saw a highlight tip of him being open on some deep passes, but Hurts just electing to go underneath and just dump it off to Saquon Barkley for a 2 or 3 yard gain instead of a potential big play with Brown. But they're still one of the best teams in football. They're still fighting for that number one overall seed. They get a home game here. Russ has been good for the Steelers, but their defense for the Eagles has been just as good. They've been great against both the pass and the run. The Steelers, I'm pretty sure, are going to be missing George Pickens for this game, which could hurt their offense a lot as well. 5 points is a big spread, especially with everything being considered. The Steelers are 10-3 versus the spread, which is tied in the NFL with the Broncos, and the Eagles are 8-5. I really want to go with the Steelers +5 in this one. I just think there's a lot going against them, and I feel like they might just be due for a loss. So I'm going to go Eagles -5.
Okay, moving on here to Pats at Cardinals. This is really the only bad game in this late slate here. Cardinals are really struggling and they need a win here. New England has been better in the past game defensively, but the Cardinals should have some pass rush success. Arizona's run defense has not been great. New England can establish a run game here. I worry about New England though with a long trip to Arizona for this game. Arizona should be great defensively in the red zone. They should force a ton of field goals. New England should not have much of a pass rush, I would assume, versus the O line that's pretty solid and a mobile quarterback. I don't think they're going to get home a ton. Kyler just cannot throw picks, and Arizona has to hold on to the ball. They cannot turn it over. That's when you're starting to get into murky waters here with a team like New England. I have to go Cardinals here, but I hate this line. I hate this everything about this game, but I'm going to go Cardinals -4.5.
Patriots are coming off of the bye week here. The last game that they played, they looked very good, and specifically Drake May. They fought hard and lost the game late, which is kind of ideal for them looking to improve their draft pick. Drake May has been very good for them. He's been successful. He doesn't have top weapons. That should be their number one need in the offseason, as that's kind of what this Patriots team is looking towards. And then you look at the Cardinals, their backs are completely against the wall. They have to win out to really fight for a playoff chance. They had to win last week, really, for that chance, and they were unable to get it done. Kyler has struggled in a lot of these big games recently. He was hot, but he seems to be cooled off and struggling. He needs to get the ball to his top weapons more. He's been getting it to McBride a lot, but Marvin Harrison's been quiet. He's most likely going to have a tough matchup in this one with Christian Gonzalez. I'm actually going to go Patriots +5.5. I think the Cardinals still might win this game at home, but I'd like the Patriots to keep it close and potentially blow the game late, or the Cardinals need a game-winning field goal to win it. But I like Cardinals +5.5.
Okay, moving on here to Sunday Night Football. Packers at Seahawks is a
The
huge
Patriots
Sunday night game. What was that?
I said Cardinals +5.5. I meant Patriots +5.5.
Oh, okay, yeah, I got you. Huge Sunday night football game here. Seahawks should be able to get after this up and down Packers offense. I think the Seahawks are going to find some success defensively, although I think Josh Jacobs could definitely have a good game here. Green Bay has a pretty mid pass rush. If they can get home to Geno, they're going to have a great game. That's really the difference in Seattle's ability offensively. Are they playing a team that has a pass rush that they're not able to handle? Or are they playing a team that has a mid pass rush? Or if they're playing against a bad pass rush, they're great. Here it's mid, so it can go either way. Green Bay doesn't have a great red zone defense. Seattle just cannot settle for field goals in this game. They have to be able to get in the end zone when they can. Seattle has a decent pass rush, but Green Bay's O line has been great this entire year. Jordan Love has not been getting sacked a ton. Green Bay has a much better turnover differential. That should be the difference in this game. I know it's in Seattle, but I'm going to take Green Bay -3 in primetime Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I'm looking at Green Bay a lot. I like them in this one. These two teams have had a lot of classic games in recent memory. Packers defense has given up over 220 yards per game through the air, and they're going to be going against Geno Smith, who throws the ball a lot. He's had at least 280 yards in 6 games this season. The Packers are 7-1 when they give up less than 250 yards and 2-3 when they don't. If the Seahawks are able to pass the ball well, they should be able to win this game. But I like this Packers team. They've been very good overall. The NFC North, outside of I think playing the top three teams each other, the Packers, Vikings, and Bears, or Packers, Vikings, and Lions. I don't think those three teams have a loss outside of each other since like week 8 or something.
Yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
been,
They have three losses, I think, not each other,
yeah,
which is ridiculous.
which is just absurd. I think the Packers are going to control the time possession with Josh Jacobs. He's going to have a very big day on the ground, I believe, against the Seahawks run defense that hasn't been great. He's the third leading rusher in the NFL right now. And like you said, they've had trouble stopping the run. I wanted to check I check every week when we do this if Toyotathon started. And I actually, for the first time, I see that Toyotathon might have started.
Oh
And
wow.
Jordan Love has been playing better. So I'm going to go with the
It must not have
Packers.
started in that first half of the Lions game then.
Yeah.
It started at halftime or
Uh,
something.
I'm going to go with Packers -3. Jordan Love has been, outside that first half against the Lions, he's been better in recent weeks, and I think he's going to continue it. So I got Packers -3. I think they win this game.
Okay,
Or,
moving.
yeah, -3. Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were gonna switch to
I thought it
Seahawks.
changed.
We have two Monday night football games this week, so the double Monday night is back. But Bears and Vikings is the first one. Vikings open as touchdown favorites versus the Bears in this game. Bears competed in three straight divisional games and then lost by a million to San Francisco last week. Bears have the worst O line in football, and this is the best pass rush in Minnesota. I don't feel the most confident about Darnold and company, but they were great versus the Bears last time. They shredded them. The Vikings should have won that game big last time, but the Bears had a late cover, came back and forced overtime, onside kick, and a ton of other stuff. Bears have to find a way to move the ball to win, and I just don't see that in this game. Vikings 6-1 at home. Bears haven't won a road game, so I'm going to take the Vikings as touchdown favorites here. They're 6.5, whatever it is.
Yeah, the Vikings dominated the majority of that last game, like you said. Really wasn't close at all until some lucky things happened late. The Bears got back in it, and at the time, that was Caleb Williams' best game. Might still be. Bears haven't won a game on the road, though, like you said. I think that's going to continue. I expect this team to continue struggling without Eberflus. I think the defense is just going to continue to look worse and worse. It hasn't been great this season, hasn't lived up to expectations, but I think it's just going to continue to go downhill. Vikings need to win to stay in the division race and that playoff hunt. Sam Darnold was great last week. 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was good against the Bears. I expect him to continue. Vikings are 8-4-1 against the spread. I'm going Vikings -6.5.
Okay, our 16th and final game here, the last Monday Night Football game, Falcons at Raiders. Desmond Ritter, revenge game in this game. He's, like you said, at home in Las Vegas for this game. Raiders do not move the ball well, but Atlanta's defense is horrible. Ritter should have plenty of time to make reads, even with a bad O line here, because they're just not going to be able to get home. Raiders defense is mid, not horrible. Kirk's going to have to come to play. He's not going to get a free pass in this game. Raiders seem to be wanting to lose now and trying to get Shadur or Cam Ward or whoever. Atlanta's bad in the red zone, but they do have a good matchup here. Raiders, they don't force turnovers or hold on to the ball. They're the worst turnover differential team in football, but neither do the Falcons, honestly. I hate this, but I cannot take a team that wants to lose in the Raiders, so I'm going to take the Falcons -4 on the road.
Yeah, I'm back and forth on this one. Kirk Cousins has been terrible recently. 8 interceptions in his last 4 games, 0 touchdowns in that span. They haven't won. They get a winnable game here against the Raiders. They need that win to get back on track. I think they get the win. It's just a matter of can the Raiders keep it close. Falcons defense has not lived up to expectations at all, especially in this stretch. This is a game where they can kind of get back on track, get right game against Desmond Ridder, a guy who they've seen before. Raiders are looking to improve that draft pick, like you said, maybe get Shadur. I don't see it. They have had a better rushing attack, the Raiders, with Sincere McCormick in there. I just don't see them being able to stay in this game. Prime time. It is in Vegas, but I'm also going to go Falcons -5. Not confident in it though.
Okay, we can move on to our best bets now. It is week 15, right? This is week 15?
Yeah, you're first
Okay.
this week.
Yeah, okay. So it was supposed to be you last week, but it ended up not mattering. Yeah, I remember. Okay. My first pick here, I'm going to go with the Lions -2.5. I haven't taken them in a couple weeks. I like this matchup for them. Like you said, I think they're going to be able to run all over the Bills, and they get up for the big games. This might not be prime time, but it's close enough. The Lions' worst window is that 12 o'clock window. They get to avoid that. They get up for a big game at home, second to last home game of the year. Give me the Lions -2.5. Or
For
actually,
my
not second to last home game of the year, second to last home regular season game of the year. I want to clarify that.
yeah, I'll say you must be predicting your team falls apart then.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
For my first best bet, I'm gonna go Buccaneers +3. I think they win this game against the Chargers. I like them a lot in this one. They have the weapons back. Hopefully, Bucky Irving's good to go. The only potential thing I see going wrong is they're missing Winfield. Maybe Herbert can exploit that, but the Chargers just don't have the weapons right now on offense to really dominate a game offensively. So I'm gonna go Buccaneers +3.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I'm going to take the under in that game and under 46. I don't think even without Winfield that they're going to be able to pass all over this Tampa Bay offense, and their run game has struggled over the past couple of weeks without Dobbins, and we know how good this Chargers defense is. That even against a great offense in Tampa, I don't think they're going to go up and put 35 on them. So, give me the under 46 in that game.
Um, I've been fantastic. I look back at betting unders. I don't know if I've really lost an under so far this year. I just
You
wanted to
lost two
mention
last
that.
week.
Yeah, you lost two last week, but for me, I've been great at them. You've been overall very good at unders too, though. For my second one, though, I'm going to go Packers -3 against the Seahawks. I like these NFC North teams dominating the rest of the NFL. I think that's going to continue. And this is a solid matchup for them where they can run the ball very well. If their secondary can just slow down Geno Smith enough or force him into a turnover, they're going to control time of possession. And I see them getting it done and winning this game. So
All right,
Packers -3.
so we're going to take every NFC North team to cover the spread outside of the Bears because they're playing the Vikings. So I'm gonna take the Vikings -6.5 here. I think they're gonna blow out the Bears. I think the Bears are giving up at this point. They're losing hope. The Vikings are so good at home. The Bears are helpless on the road. And this is a game where I think Caleb Williams can go get sacked like 7 times. So I'm gonna take the Vikings -6.5.
For my last one, I didn't really mention it, but I'm looking at it right now. I think I'm going to go. A lot of people are against this one. They're picking the over in this game, it looks like 70% of people. But I'm going to go the under in the Dolphins Texans game, under 47. It's not the highest number, it's not the lowest number, it's kind of in the middle, but I think this could be a defensive battle. Both offensive have been good this season and at times, but I see both these defenses showing up and having big games, keeping the game low scoring. And I think the Dolphins cover that +3, but I'm going to go with the under in that game, under 47.
Okay, so that will about do it. That was also on my list as well, but that will about do it for this episode of the Engage A podcast. We will be back on Monday or Tuesday to give you a recap of most of these games, and then we'll be back a week from today to not talk any college football. Maybe we'll talk some college hoops or something. I don't know because there will be nothing but the Army Navy game for us to talk about, and then get you ready for the next week of the NFL season. So if you made it this far, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel. Hit all the links in our description for Spotify, TikTok, social media, and all that good stuff. And we'll see everybody in the next one.